Welcome to our online service. My name is Keith, and I'm the lead pastor at Grace Fellowship. I want to thank you for joining us. If you're new to Grace, we'd love to connect with you and answer any questions that you may have. We know entering a new place, especially a church, can be challenging and uncomfortable, and we want to make your first visit to one of our in-person campuses as easy as possible. You can fill out the plan a visit form to let us know you're coming, and our team will be sure to meet you at the door, show you around, and answer any of your questions. If you're watching on our website, there's a chat bubble in the bottom right corner of your screen where you can connect with a real person to answer any questions that you have. Now let's transition to our service.
What's going on, Grace? So good to see you today. You know, regardless of what you're coming in with, what you've walked in from, we have a God that wants you to bring that to Him, that wants you to offer that to Him as a safe place, as a strong foundation that we can stand on. So let's stand together today and sing of that. Christ is my firm foundation, and the rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaking. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus, 'cause He's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. So why would He fail now? He won't. He won't. I've still got joy in chaos. I've got peace that makes no sense. So I won't be going under. I'm not held by my own strength, 'cause I built my life on Jesus. He's never let me down. He's faithful in every season. So why would He fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaking. I've never been more glad I put my faith in Jesus. He's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. So why would He fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. No. Come on, our God never fails, so let's sing to Him. Come on, sing this out. Rain came, winds blew, my house was built on You. I'm safe with You, I'm gonna make it through. Rain came, wind blew, my house was built on You. I'm safe with You, I'm gonna make it through. Rain came, wind blew, my house was built on You. strong on you. Yeah, I'm gonna make it through. 'Cause our house was built on you. Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand. Everything around me is shaking. No, I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus. 'Cause He's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. Come on. Why would He fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. No, He won't. How I long to breathe the air of heaven, where pain is gone and mercy fills the streets, to look upon the one who bled to save me and walk with Him for all eternity. Come on, sing this with us. There will be a day when all will bow before Him. There will be a day when death will be no more. Standing face to face with He who died and rose again. Holy, holy is the Lord.
And every prayer we prayed in desperation, the songs of faith we sang through doubt and fear. Oh, in the end, we'll see that it was worth it when He returns to wipe away our tears.
There will be a day when all will bow before Him. There will be a day when death will be no more. Standing face to face with He who died and rose again. Holy, holy is the Lord. And on that day, we join the resurrection and stand beside the heroes of the faith. And with one voice, 1,000 generations sing, worthy is the Lamb who was slain. And on that day, we join the resurrection and stand beside the heroes of the faith. And with one voice, 1,000 generations sing, worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Forever He shall reign. So let it be today. We shout the hymn of heaven with angels and the saints. We raise a mighty roar. Glory to our God who gave us life beyond the grave. Holy, holy saints, we raise a mighty roar. Glory to our God, who gave us life beyond the grave. Holy, holy is the Lord. Singing, holy, holy is the Lord. Holy, holy is the Lord.
There's a lot of incredibly beautiful things that we get to experience right now in our relationships with Jesus. But one of the most beautiful things that as Christians we will experience is standing face to face with our God and Him wiping every tear from our eye. It's this beautiful, beautiful thing that we will look forward to one day. It's good to be reminded of that and tell ourselves that truth tonight. It's good to sing with you. You can go ahead and have a seat. Well, thanks for being here tonight. My name is Daniel. I'm the director of the Young Adult Ministry here at Grace, and I really am thankful that you braved the cold to be here tonight. I don't know about you, but the cold weather over the last week has really ushered in the feeling in my life like the holidays are here and quickly approaching. It's almost like if I close my eyes, I can already taste the honey-baked ham coming out of the oven. Yes, I said honey-baked ham. That's what Thanksgiving's about, not turkey, honey-baked ham. That's what I'm looking forward to. Amen. If I really close my eyes, though, I can almost taste my favorite Thanksgiving tradition, which is watching Ohio State defeat that team up north Saturday afterwards, which I say humbly. Our pride's still a little bit hurt from last year, but I'm looking forward to that. Hey, listen, we have a lot to look forward to as individuals and as families over the holiday season. And one of the things that we're looking forward to here at Grace is actually something coming up here in a few weeks. It's one of my favorite things that we do as a church and get to experience together, and that's baptisms. Baptisms are coming up in a few weekends on December 8th and December 11th. And as Christians, we believe that our faith is deeply personal. But we also believe that it is not private. And baptism is an outward expression of an inward change in somebody's life. People who have said, I have started a personal relationship with Jesus, and I want to make that known to the people that are around me. So if you've already signed up for baptism and you're looking forward to getting baptized on either the 8th or the 11th, man, we're excited to celebrate you and to really just cheer and rejoice as a whole church together. But if you're here tonight and you want to know more about baptism, or you want to take the step to go ahead and get baptized, you can actually go to the Engage page on our website. You'll see all the details on how to sign up for baptism and what it's all about. And we look forward to celebrating together as a whole church on the 8th and the 11th of December. Well, hey, we're in week 2 of a series that we're calling Things We Forget to Believe. So get ready for our message. Grab your notes, grab your program, grab a pen, and get ready to hear tonight's message.
There are some realities of life as a Christian that have been true all along. But somehow, we've learned to live like they're not. We've left them behind. We forgot to believe. These truths never changed. We changed. What if we took the time to reconnect with our purpose? Shifted our focus to reflect on the eternal? What if we journey back to recall the promises? Rediscover the wonder, and recapture the power of the things we forget to believe.
Well, it is good to see you this weekend at all campuses and online. Thanks for joining us. And we are in week 2 of a series called Things We Forget to Believe, a series that we have said is really important for us as a church to get around, because sometimes we want to teach and we want to understand new things. And sometimes you come to church going, I want to learn something new. I want to dig deeper. I want to unearth something I really haven't understood before. And we're saying, and that is not the point of this series. This series is actually to do something different. And so if you're going, show me something brand new that I've never thought of before, just hang in there with us. I think we'll surprise you with the value of this series, because the truth is there's actually real value in stuff we already know. And so what we've been saying for this whole series is we framed it by saying this: some of the most life-changing truths are not new things we need to learn, but rather old things we need to remember to believe. Some of the most life-changing truths are not new things we need to learn, but rather old things we need to remember to believe. Yeah, I've already heard that thing before, right, but do you believe it? And we've put a real focus on this idea of like the difference between just knowing and believing. And Pastor Jake started us off last week with a great message about God's presence, something that we would probably all say, yeah, I already know God is with me and God is everywhere, but we saw how believing that can make a really incredible difference. In fact, there's a real difference that happens when we move from just knowing something to believing something. For the sake of this conversation today, I want us to be just kind of on the same page. What do we mean when we say belief? What does it mean to be believing something? And in your notes, I want you to write it down like this: belief is when knowledge meets action and transforms a life. Belief is when knowledge meets action and transforms a life. So yeah, there's a lot of things you and I both know, but does your life look different because of it? There are a lot of facts in our head, even facts about God, but has that changed the way that we live our lives? And so the question that I want you to ask yourself as we move into today's conversation is not the question, do I know this in my head? It's, do I see this in my life? Because belief is where knowledge meets action and transforms a life. It should result in a change that is visible, that is tangible, that we can see in our lives. I was driving home the other day. It was probably just about a week ago, and on my way home there was a car in front of me, and I noticed the first time this car started just to kind of drift across the center lane, and then as there was an oncoming car, the car just kind of whipped back into its own lane and then began to drift again across the center lane and then whipped back again and then did it again. And I'm starting to think, what is going on with the driver of the car in front of me? Like, is this a student driver that is obviously going to fail? Is this a person who is like way too old to be driving a car? Is this a person who I actually thought, is somebody having a stroke? Like, what is going on up there? Is there some medical emergency? And of course, I'm wondering, is this person like just playing a game on their phone while they're driving? Like, what's happening? And we pull up to a stoplight, and the person kind of like looks like they're not going to stop, and then suddenly slams on the brakes and stops. Then the light turns green, and they don't go anywhere. And I'm sitting behind them, and I'm like, I'm getting ready to lay on the horn here. I'm like, but if they turn around and they go to Grace, that's going to be weird. So I'm like, what do I do? And they finally turned, and at this point, I'm like, something is going on. And I did what we all do when we kind of like are passing past kind of a crazy driver. You know, you crane your neck because you want to see who is driving that thing and whether it confirms your bias of who would be driving a car that crazily, right? So you're imagining, what am I going to see? And I'm thinking, what am I going to see? Am I going to see this person is like snorting a line right now while I'm looking past? Do they have like 20 dogs in their car? You know, are they juggling knives? What is happening in this car? But regardless of what I thought that I was going to see, here's what I knew. That person who was driving should not have been driving. Based on the way that I saw them operating and handling what they were doing, I had an assumption in my mind that they did not have what it takes to do their job the way that it was supposed to be done. And there are a bunch of ways in life that we encounter things like that. And when we see something that we view as like wrong or mismanaged or neglected or chaotic, we go, that person who's in control should not be in control. It's when you go to the restaurant and like the staff is just awful and they bring out the wrong order and just everything's wrong. And you're like, whoever's in control should not be in control. And this manager should be gone. It's when you are, it's when you get off the plane and it's been a really bumpy flight. You don't think to yourself, man, that weather must have been bad. You're like, fire the pilot. Like what is going on? Whoever's in control should not be in control. And when we encounter chaos, there's an assumption that happens, and there's something actually that we lose. And it's this: when we encounter chaos, we question our confidence in the person in control. When we encounter chaos, we question our confidence in the person in control. We do this when we see something that's chaotic in the realm of politics. We say, whoever's in charge of that shouldn't be in charge of that. They can't do that job. Again, when we see it in a restaurant or a driver or a pilot, when we encounter chaos, we question our confidence in the person in control. Now, I'm just going to jump right into starting to make this personal for all of us. You encounter chaos in the world around you. You encounter chaos in your own personal world. And so you look around and you see things in the realm of your health that might feel chaotic right now, in the realm of finances that feel like they're out of control, a relationship that feels like, man, things just are not as they should be and I don't know what to do, and it just feels chaotic and it feels out of control. In your career, you just feel like stuff's going wrong and it shouldn't be this way. You look around the world and you go, man, there's international conflict and there's threats of war and the economy and what is going on with that, and just sociological things that we're experiencing where there's all these new tensions that we're dealing with that we never had to deal with before, and it's election season and all of the things that we would go, the world is chaotic. And what happens when we see chaos is we want to kind of roll up responsibility to whoever's at the top of that. Well, ultimately, who's at the top of the chaos in the world? And we would look around and go, well, who's managing this? Well, somebody here. Yeah, but who's managing above that? Well, somebody here. And ultimately, here's what happens for a lot of us. We go, I don't understand the thing that I was told when I first encountered the Christian faith. God's in control and you can trust him and he's got the whole world in his hands. But when we encounter chaos, we question our confidence in the person in control. And that questioning and that lack of confidence, that rolls up, and sometimes it rolls up all the way to God, and we find ourselves asking questions we wish we didn't feel like we had to ask. I don't understand how to square the fact that somebody says God is in control, and we can trust him and he's got him, and the world seems so chaotic. And what we really want, all of us at our core, is this confidence that says, like, somebody's got this and it's going to be okay. All of the stuff around you in your life, in the world, what we want is to know that somebody's got this and it's going to be okay, and we want that confidence. But when we don't have that confidence, when we don't have what feels like that protective layer, then what happens is the chaos out there feels like it becomes chaos right here. In your notes, I said it like this: the chaos around us becomes chaos within us when we don't have that confidence. Chaos around us creates chaos within us. We feel unsafe. We feel unsettled. When we feel like the person who should be doing the job of running things well, it doesn't look like they're doing the job of running things well. And so what happens is we become self-protective. We move away from that place of confidence and we say, well, I feel fearful, I feel defeated, I feel desperate, I feel helpless, I feel hopeless, I'm worried, I have anxiety about the future, about myself, about my kids, because somebody's got to take care of all this stuff. And it seems like the person who should be isn't, and what do I do? We become self-protective. We become self-reliant. And for a lot of us, we go, well, if the person who should be taking care of it isn't taking care of it, then I'm going to take care of it. And we do that in a bunch of ways. We do that with sex and relationships. We do that where we say, God, I know you said you want me to do it this way, but you haven't done your job of bringing the right person along, and so I'm going to do it my way. We do that with money. We do that with our own reputation and our friendships as we try to change and fit in, and along the way we give up a standard here, we give up a piece of morality, we give up our character, and we say, fine then, if you're not going to do it, then I'm going to do it our way. And if we're honest, there's a lot of us that would say, like, a good deal of the regret I experienced in my life came from the stories that started with, well, then I'll just do it my way. We become self-protective, we become self-reliant, we become skeptical, because here's the truth, it can be hard to believe and trust in a God that you feel like is asleep at the wheel. And so it's hard on our faith, and it's fodder for the skeptic in each of us to say, I've seen better run organizations than this world looks like it's being run. And so what's that supposed to say about my confidence in God? And what happens is it becomes really easy to forget to believe what we've been told at the beginning, that God's got this and God's in control and you can trust him and he's got the whole world in his hands. And if you're in a place today where you feel like the world's falling apart around you and you don't know what to do and you feel like God is asleep on the job, then I want to say I think there's a thing maybe we've forgotten to believe. And the good news is God speaks to that. And he speaks to it in a way that I think we're going to find really encouraging and refreshing, in a way that can, even in the midst of chaos in our lives, move us away from this cowering, controlling self-reliance to a place of thriving and trust. And so let's grab our Bibles. And if you don't have a Bible, I want to let you know that at Grace Central after the service, we'd love to give you one for free. And so stop by there and let us give you that after the service. But we're going to an Old Testament passage from a long time ago, and God is the same yesterday and today and forever. And so the fact that he never changes means we can go way back into the past and what was written about God. And it can matter, and it can be incredibly encouraging today. So we're going to the book of Isaiah, chapter 40, and we're going to look at something that maybe we have forgotten to believe. And this is God talking to the nation of Israel through the prophet Isaiah, who is delivering God's message to the people. And they're in a spot where they needed to be comforted. In fact, if you go back to the very beginning of Isaiah chapter 40, God is telling Isaiah, go and comfort my people. So I hope that you receive this word as comfort. God is saying, do you not know? Have you not heard? Has it not been told to you from the beginning? Have you not understood since the earth was founded? This is God saying, it seems like there's something you knew but you forgot to believe. Something you've heard before. You've heard it 100 times, but I need to come back to you right now, and I need to remind you again, because there's something that you have forgotten to believe in the midst of the chaos, in the midst of what you see all around you. And what is it we've forgotten to believe? He says, here's what I want to remind you of. He sits enthroned above the circle of the earth. God is on his throne. God is on his throne. He hasn't vacated it. It hasn't been taken away from him. He hasn't fallen asleep on it. God sits enthroned right now above the circle of the earth. He's there and he's in control just as much as he always has been, and nothing has changed, and God is on his throne. And the people of the earth are like grasshoppers. That's you. And I don't know how you feel being told that, grasshopper, but how big is a grasshopper's brain? How much can a grasshopper do? How much can a grasshopper affect anything in this world? The tiniest, tiniest, tiniest bit. And let's remember that as we get ready to question God. Let's remember that as we begin to say, but I don't understand, and how does this compute? God's on his throne, and you're a grasshopper. Let's start with that. And then he's going to continue to talk. And he says, God, he stretches out the heavens like a canopy, and he spreads them out like a tent to live in. Just this grand language of the fact that the God who is enthroned is doing great, big stuff, cosmic things that he is involved in. And then not just cosmic things that are way out there, but like actual real life, real time things that involve people. He brings princes to naught, and he reduces the rulers of this world to nothing. Most powerful person you can think of, bring them to mind right now. And here's what God has to say about them. No sooner are they planted, no sooner are they sown, no sooner do they take root in the ground than he blows on them, and they wither. And a whirlwind sweeps them away like a chaff. The most powerful people in the world, the most influential people, the people that we would say they have so much control and so much power over things. God's like, yeah, but only for as long as they're alive. And that's like that long. Because God is eternal. And even the most powerful, influential people, they're just gone in a moment, in an instant. And God says, are you really going to try to compare me with somebody like that? Like, you don't even know what you're getting into when you think about how much I am in control. To whom will you compare me? Or who is my equal, says the Holy One. He continues and says this, lift up your eyes and look to the heavens. So object lesson time, okay? He goes, okay, everybody put your pens down, look up at the sky, and then I just love the fact that God asked this question, who created all these? Like, look up and ask yourself, who did that? And the answer is obvious. The answer is God did. Lift up your eyes and look to the heavens. Who created all these? And he continues and says, it's me. It's he who brings out the starry host one by one and calls forth each of them by name. Because of his great power and mighty strength, not one of them is missing. Let's remember who we're talking to. Like, we're talking to the God who hung the Milky Way in place. We're talking to the God who makes the moon go through its orbit and it functions into tides and seasons and all of these things that we experience. We're talking to the God who makes sunrises and sunsets beautiful and majestic. We're talking to the God who created all the constellations. And he's like, I did that with my great power. And I did that with my mighty strength. And all of this huge stuff out there, guess what? Not one of them is missing. Why? Because I'm in control. Because I have everything in my hands. He continues and he says this, why do you complain, Jacob? Why do you say, Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord? My cause is disregarded by my God. Here's where it becomes personal. Here's where we forget to believe. Because so far, everything that I've said, it's easy to go yep. If we're a Christian, we're going, yeah, I believe that. I've heard that. God's on his throne. He made the earth. All of those things. And yet still we say, I feel forgotten, or I feel like you don't care. I feel like my way is hidden from you, God, or I feel like my cause is disregarded by you. Isn't it true that at the same time we can understand that God's big and God's in control and he hung the stars, and yet we go, yeah, but I feel like he forgot my thing. I feel like I slipped through the cracks. And he's saying, yeah, exactly, because there's something that you have forgotten to believe. Now here's the part where I want him to go, because he's getting ready to turn us to some proof that's going to remind us you haven't been forgotten, you're cared about, he's got you. But what I want God to do at this point is I want him to take me to his heavenly file cabinet, go to Olson, open it up all the way to the J's. Oh, here's Jeremiah. Pull out Jeremiah Olson's file, show it to me and be like, look, here's all the stuff I'm doing behind the scenes. See, it all works out. And then I'll be like, okay, God, you are in control. That's what I want. But instead of pointing me somewhere else, what he does is he takes all of us and he points us right back to himself. Why do you complain and think you're hidden and think you're disregarded? And he says, look back at me. Do you not know? Have you not heard? Once again, what have you forgotten to believe? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. Everlasting, from eternity past to eternity future, which, by the way, your grasshopper mind can't even comprehend, and neither can mine. Eternity past to eternity future, I am the everlasting God with no beginning and no end, the creator of the ends of the earth. I made everything from the smallest minutia all the way to the greatest movement of anything you've ever seen. And you think I dropped something? You think I forgot you? You think I'm not controlling the events that are going on? You think I'm not firmly settled on my throne? He doesn't grow tired or weary. Listen, when you get tired, you drop stuff. Guess what? I don't get tired. I don't forget things. I don't wear down. My performance doesn't go down the more things I'm handling because he's inexhaustible, because he's eternal. And then he says, and his understanding no one can fathom. This right here is a tough thing to wrestle with, because I think a lot of times in our lives when we go, God, but I don't understand. He goes, yep, you can't. You can't fathom the way that I understand things. You can't calculate the way that I rule things. You can't put an equation to it, and some things will just never make sense to you. Why? Because he's the enthroned God, and you're just a grasshopper. And his understanding, no one can fathom. And there are some things in our lives, we get to the end of a question, we get to the end of a hard thing, and we have to land here. You know what? I don't know. And maybe I'll never get to know. And his understanding, no one can fathom. And that's hard. And sometimes it feels like he's kind of putting us in his place. Listen, you won't understand, you can't understand. Let's remember he's also the God who says, I see your secret tears, I count the hairs on your head. I come to me and cast your cares on me because I care for you. But right now he's saying, you don't get it, you won't get it, but I've got it. His understanding, no one can fathom. But here's a really awesome piece of the heart of God as we continue. He says, he gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. So even the best of you, the strongest of you, the ones who have youthful vigor and energy, and the ones that you would say, put them in the Olympics, okay? Those are the ones, you know what? When they try to control things, when they try to rule the universe, you know what happens? They stumble, they fall, they grow tired, they grow weary, and then he sets up this comparison. That's what happens with them, but here's this other group of people, those who hope in the Lord. Youths grow tired and weary, young men stumble and fall. Even the best of you, you can't handle it on your own when you rely on yourselves, but people who rely on me, those who hope in the Lord, here's what happens to them. They will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. I am the God who is on the throne. Nothing has changed. You cannot possibly fathom the scope and the breadth and the depth of the way that I control and move things. But I'll tell you this, if you try to do it yourself, you're just going to burn out. You're going to put God-sized burdens on your own shoulders. You're going to fall. You're going to grow tired. You're going to go weary. But if you'll just believe and remember to believe, then you will have hope. You will have energy. You will have stamina. You will have peace. What's the thing that God is saying? Come on. Remember to believe this today. What we need to remember to believe is this. He's on the throne, and he's in control. He is on the throne and in control. I know that the chaos of our world looks really big to us from where we grasshoppers look at it. But he's going, I'm enthroned above the circle of the earth, and I'm on the throne, and I am in control even when you can't understand it, because my understanding no one can fathom. I am on the throne, and I am in control. And the theological term of what we're talking about when we say he's on the throne and in control, the word we're talking about is a word called sovereignty. And sovereignty, for the sake of this conversation, this is a really long definition, but I just liked it. Sovereignty, God has complete power, wisdom, and authority to exercise his perfect rule and control wherever and however he chooses, and nothing or no one can stop him. When we talk about God is on the throne and in control, we're saying he has complete power, wisdom, and authority to exercise his perfect rule and control wherever and however he chooses, and nothing and no one can stop him. He's sovereign. He's sovereign. He's on the throne and he's in control. Now, I know when we start talking about God in control, sometimes there can be some pushback. And how am I really supposed to understand this? So I just want to spend a couple seconds right now helping us to make sure that we file this appropriately and we understand this. God is in control, but he's not controlling. He's not a puppet master, making you move from here to there, making you choose this thing and another thing. Why? Because he exercises his power, wisdom, and authority wherever and however he chooses. And you know what? One of the hows that he chooses to exercise that is he chose to give man free will. He chose to give man the right to choose, and so he didn't make robots. He made people, and he gave people the right to make choices. And sometimes you make dumb choices. And sometimes other people make dumb choices, and the consequences of their choices hurt you. And a lot of that is how we get to some of the answers of like, but how do I understand evil in the world? Is because God decided he's not going to make robots, he's going to make people. Yes, he could get rid of sin, but if he got rid of sin, guess who else would be gone with it? You, me. And so he has said instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create physical constants, and I'm going to create order, and I'm going to create actions and consequences. And when I want to, I'm going to pop right in and intervene and do what I want. But ultimately, here's what's true. No matter what anybody does, it cannot thwart his ultimate plan for your good and his glory. Because he is on the throne and in control. Because he is sovereign. When we believe something, we combine knowledge with action, and it transforms a life. What does it mean to remember to believe that God is on the throne and in control? What are the actions that would accompany that? There are 3 of them that come out of the text that I want us to look at. The first action, when we remember to believe that he's on the throne and in control, is that we will recognize it. We'll recognize his sovereignty when we see it. God said, look up at the heavens, look at the stars. Who made all these? Oh, that's right, it was me. You'll recognize his sovereignty when it's right in front of your eyes, when you believe that it's true. If you have a friend or maybe one of your kids is like involved in a school play and their job is they're backstage, they've got the pulley, and when it's time for like the cloud to move in place, you know, they move the cloud into place. If you didn't know that that was their job, you wouldn't even notice the cloud ever moved. And they'd come up to you afterwards, how'd I do? And you'd be like, I didn't see you. And they'd be like, you didn't see me, I moved the cloud. But if you knew ahead of time, you'd be waiting, you'd be watching, and when that cloud moves, you're like, that's my kid. They moved the cloud. Listen, here's the thing. When you believe that God is sovereign, when you believe that he's on the throne and in control, the things that are right in front of your face, you're going to see them, you're going to recognize them, you're going to notice them, you're going to see the way that he is moving things in your life. When you believe that he's on the throne and in control. I think one of the realities that happens to us when we forget to believe that he's sovereign is we don't see it. We don't see him working in our lives. And we begin to create the narrative that he's not. And maybe you're in this place right now, and maybe you've been in this place before where you would say, if I asked you to fill a page on the ways that you see God involved in your life, you couldn't do it. You couldn't fill a page on it. Why? Because you don't see it, because you don't recognize it. And I'm saying, but it's right there in front of you. And believing that it's true is how you see it. Where do you see it? God said one is creation. It's pretty easy to say, look around at the things and go, who created all this? Man, it's not just that was a great sunset. It was, God, you made a great sunset. Where else do you see God's sovereignty? In the rearview mirror of your own life. Right? You look back and you go, those things that I didn't know he was there, man, he was there. Look what he did. Look what he's done. And looking back on our own stories is a really good practice to be able to remember, man, he's on the throne. He's in control. He's in my life and he is moving. We see his sovereignty when we're involved in group life because we hear the stories of other people and how God's moving in their lives. We see his sovereignty when we read our Bibles and we see story over story over story over story over story where God is on the throne and he was in control. Sometimes you don't see it because it doesn't look like what you thought it would look like. So yeah, I couldn't see God's sovereignty because he didn't exercise his sovereignty the way I was wanting him to exercise his sovereignty, right? So it's the classic, like a bride's praying for no rain and right next to it a farmer's praying for rain, okay? And so something happens, and how do we know whether God was sovereign? Well, it depends. Are you the bride or are you the farmer? Because we want to interpret his sovereignty according to my way, my plan, my time. But sometimes his sovereignty is right in front of you. It's just you didn't recognize it because you thought it would look different. Sometimes we don't recognize his sovereignty because we're really good at taking credit ourselves for good stuff and blaming the bad stuff on him. So your own stupid choices, you go, well, I didn't see God show up there. But then when something amazing happens, you go, I did that. A proper view of God's sovereignty knows where the credit really goes. And so it's not saying I got the job, it's saying he gave me the job and I see him. It's not saying we stayed healthy, it's he kept us healthy. It's not saying I had that great conversation, it's God gave me wisdom and patience and tact and the ability to have that conversation. I see it all around me, I recognize it when I remember to believe he's on the throne and in control. And when we do that, what comes out of us? Because knowledge plus action equals a transformed life when we believe. What's the transformation? Gratitude, praise, worship, joy in going, man, it's true, you're on the throne, you're in control, and I can see you moving in my life. When we forget to believe it, we feel like we've been forgotten. We feel like he's not doing anything. That's why we need to remember to believe it. Belief is when knowledge meets action. What's another action? It's this: we remember it. We remember his sovereignty when it's not right in front of our eyes. We remember it when we can't see it. Again, in the passage, he said, why do you complain, O Jacob? Why do you say, O Israel, my cause is hidden from the Lord. I'm disregarded by my God. Why do we do that? Because you can't see it. Because sometimes it feels like you've been forgotten. And I'm just going to be real honest. Sometimes it just feels like God's not there. Sometimes it just feels like he's a million miles away. Sometimes it feels like he's doing nothing and I'm just in the dark. But just because you can't see something doesn't mean it's not there. And if you've ever been a part of a surprise party or you've had a surprise party thrown for you, then you know it can look like there is zero going on, and yet behind the scenes there's a whole lot of stuff moving. And so if you can get to that reality, you can get to the reality that just because you can't see it doesn't mean God is not sovereign and he's not in control and he's not moving things. Listen, don't mistake God's silence for his absence. Don't mistake God's silence for his absence. God's saying, when you can't see me, don't assume things have changed. When you can't see me, assume nothing has changed. I am on my throne, whether you can see me or not. We are too quick to rewrite our theology based on how we feel. Little personal tip, I guess. Take this if you want. But I've started doing a thing when I'm entering a situation or a season where I don't see God moving, and I've been praying and he's not answering, and I start feeling that anxiety well up in me and I want to freak out. I've started pausing to ask myself, how embarrassed do I want to be when he comes through? Because I've seen enough times, and I've been around the block enough times with this, that I've said things and I've freaked out and I've thought things, and other people have heard me say things about how I'm just wondering, like, where's God in this one? And he isn't doing it, et cetera, et cetera. And then he comes through and I'm like, And I wish I could take back a word or two. How embarrassed do I want to be when God comes through on this one? And I'm not saying don't process your process. Listen, okay, be real about it. And I understand you have ugly moments. Have your ugly moment, okay? But maybe start asking yourself, how embarrassed do I want to be when God comes through and when God shows up in this? And am I going to act like a person who believes that he's on the throne and in control, or am I going to forget that right now? Guys, I know that this can be really hard sometimes. As a pastor, I get to be invited into places of immense pain in other people's lives sometimes. And so I'm not limited to only like the pain and the trauma in my own world. I get opened up to the world of pain and trauma in people's lives around me. And I've been in spaces where this is really, really hard to do. It is sometimes really, really hard to remember that he's got it when it really doesn't look like he's got it. And sometimes you have to fight for what you believe. And I don't mean fight against some worldview or fight against somebody out there. I mean fight right here for what you believe. That I believe, even though I don't see it, that he is on the throne and he is in control. And I'm going to tell myself till I believe it. I don't get it, but he's got it. I don't get it, but he's got it. I don't get it, but he's got it. Remember it, even when you can't see it. When we forget to believe, we feel forgotten, we feel abandoned, we feel left alone. But when we remember he's on the throne and in control, he's sovereign whether I see it or not, we have peace. We have peace even in the hardest times. What are the actions? What are the actions where knowledge meets action and transforms a life? Number 3, it's this. We rely on it. We rely on his sovereignty and not our own strength. Rely on it. He said, all right, the best of you, youths grow tired and weary, young men stumble and fall. That's you doing it on your own strength. And even the best of you, you'll fail. You'll run out. But those who hope in the Lord, those who rely on him, they will renew their strength. It's really cute when a toddler starts learning independence and they start to say, me do it myself. And that's cool because now they're like spooning their own peas into their lap, you know? Or they're able to, I remember when my kids wanted to buckle themselves into the car themselves. It's great when they actually learn how to get dressed themselves. But this whole me do it myself is like a phase of development where as we grow, we move to this place where we go, there's some self-reliance that I can do. But that's only cute to a degree, because once they decide me do it myself means I'll cut my hair, well, now that's starting to get into some territory we don't want to be at. And I'll throw one way out there. Me do it myself is I'll drive myself to the doctor? No. Because here's what's true. Self-reliance becomes self-destructive if you're not big enough for it. That's good. Self-reliance becomes self-destructive if you're not big enough for it. Here's what I want you to understand. You put God-sized burdens on your own shoulders and wonder why you're exhausted. It's because self-reliance becomes self-destructive if you're not big enough for it. And God is saying, listen, there are some things you're not big enough for. Don't rely on yourself. Rely on me and my sovereignty, because you're not big enough. Even the best of you will stumble and fall. So hope in the Lord instead. How do we do this? We say, I'm going to pray for wisdom to understand what's my part and what's God's part. Then I'm going to just do my part, and I'm going to let him do his part. And I'm going to hope in the Lord that he's on the throne and in control. I'm going to show up to work. I'm going to do a good job. I'm going to be good to be around. I'm going to represent Jesus well, and I'm going to rely on God for whether the layoff happens or whether the promotion happens, because I'm not big enough and I can't control that. I'll do my part. I'll let him do his part. I'm going to keep my heart open to that person. I'm going to do and say the right things. I'm going to try for a relationship, but I'm going to rely on God to do what I can't do, which is change a person's heart. I'm going to be a good steward of what he's given me, and I'm going to be faithful with it, but I'm going to rely on God because he is the provider. I'm not going to take upon myself the stuff that I can't do, because that is self-destructive, because you're not big enough. You're not big enough to take on some things. You say, I'm going to rely on God for the result of things. I'm going to rely on God for the things that only He can control. When you forget to believe that He's sovereign, you take it all on yourself. You're tired, you're weary, you stumble, you fall. You know this. But when you say, I'm going to hope in the Lord, I'm going to rely on His sovereignty, He gives strength. He gives resilience. He gives energy. He gives support as He does what He can do, and you just worry about what you should do. And so, as we think about how do we help ourselves remember to believe, not just to know, to believe He's on the throne and in control. Your action step this week is this. I'd like for you to say it out loud. When you encounter that situation where it's something you can't control, you want to take it on yourself, you want to rely on yourself, instead you're going to say out loud, nope, He's on the throne and He's in control. When you're in a situation where it's hard to see that He's actually doing anything, you say it out loud to yourself, He's on the throne and He's in control. When you see something awesome that God does in your life, you affirm that with praise and you say, man, He is on the throne and He is in control. Let other people hear you say it. Let your kids hear you say it. Let your spouse hear you say it. There are weirder things to say. He's on the throne and He's in control. Make it a part of your language this week. Make it a part of your vocabulary to say out loud, He's on the throne and He's in control. Remind yourself, rehearse it to yourself. Remember to believe it. Remember to believe it. When knowledge meets action and it transforms a life, we end up changed when we actually believe this. I'm going to have you write this down and then I want to unpack it a little bit. It is incredibly transformative to believe in and belong to the sovereign God. It is incredibly transformative to believe in and belong to the sovereign God. Praise, worship, gratitude, joy, instead of just being blind to what God might be doing in my life. Peace, assurance, instead of feeling like I've been forgotten, neglected, abandoned, left by God. Resilience and strength and perpetual energy instead of tiredness and stumbling and falling. Incredibly different, incredibly transformative to believe in this sovereign God, but even more than that, to say, I belong to that God? For a Christian to say, I belong to the God who sits enthroned above the circle of the earth. I belong to the God who increases the power of the weak and gives strength to the weary. I belong to the God whose understanding no one can fathom. I belong to the God who hung the stars in place. Like, that's my God. That's my God. He is mine and I am His, and He is sovereign and He's on the throne and He's in control and I belong to Him. That is awesome. He's on the throne and in control. So when you say it this week, maybe have a little awe and wonder in your voice. If you belong to Him, that is an incredible thing to say. Because believing in the sovereign God, belonging in the sovereign God, listen, it means under His control, under His power and authority in your life, ultimately here's what's true. The bad things are going to turn out for good, Romans 8:28. He's going to use them to accomplish His purposes for those that love Him. The good things will never go away. Stuff we talked about today, joy, gratitude, worship, praise, peace, energy, strength. No one can take that away from you. And the best things are yet to come. The worst thing that can happen for somebody who belongs to the sovereign God is you die and you go be with him forever in eternity. It is an incredibly transformative thing to believe in and belong to the sovereign God. He is on his throne. He is in control. And listen, he always has been. And he is today, and he always will be. The only thing that's a variable in this is, do you believe it? Will you believe it, and will you let it change your life? Can you pray with me? Father, I thank you for this truth. I thank you for the beautiful reminder in the book of Isaiah about our God who has never gone anywhere. You're on your throne today. You've got this. Thank you that for the yearning that each of us have in our souls, that we would know that somebody's got this and it's going to be okay. Thank you that you are the answer to that. And that we can turn to you and that we can know that you're on the throne and you're in control. That you're good and you're with us. And no matter what we see around us, you're bigger than that. You're stronger than that. That brings incredible confidence. I pray, God, as we think about your sovereignty, even your sovereignty that's just never changed through the ages, that what would come out of us truly is a sense of thanks, a sense of awe, a sense of worship and praise and gratitude that lifts us today and encourages our hearts and drives us to want to live a more Jesus-centered life. Thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
The God who always has been in control is still in control right now, and he's seated on his throne. Would you stand with us? I'm calling on the God of Jacob, whose love endures through generations. I know that you will keep your covenant. I'm calling on the God of Moses, the one who opened up the ocean. I need you now to do the same thing for me. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness, on your faithfulness. The God of Mary, whose favor rests upon the lowly. Yes, it does. I know with you all things are possible. I'm calling on the God of David. Yes, I am. Who made a shepherd boy courageous. Face Goliath, but I've got my own giants. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Yes, we need you. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness, on your faithfulness. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh pages.
You heard your children then, you hear your children now. You are the same God, come on. You are the same God. You answered prayers back then, and you will answer now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You were providing then. You are providing now. You are the same God. You are the same God.
You moved in power then. God move in power now. You are the same God. Yeah. You are the same God. You were a healer then. You are a healer now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You were a savior then. You are a savior now. You are the same God. You are the same God. Oh God, my God, yes we need you. God, my God, we need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. Yes we stand. Oh God, my God, how we need you. God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. On your faithfulness, God, yes we
To believe that God is on his throne and in control will change your life. It will. It'll give you peace in a moment, confidence in a moment, hope in a moment, joy in a moment, but not if it's just something you know. Only if it's something you believe that you allow to transform your life. I was in the back listening to the message just like you guys. I was reminded that the God who is on his throne and in control, the God in control of all of this, who's probably busy doing stuff we don't even know about, wants to know you. And he wants to hear from you. So if you're here tonight and you've had something that's weighing on your heart, you can talk to the God who is on his throne and in control. Maybe you need prayer for something tonight. You need someone to pray with you to that God who's on his throne and in control. Like always, there's folks to the left of stage who would love to pray with and for you for whatever you've got going on in your life. Maybe you're here and you want to take your next step here at Grace, or you just want to know more about what this church is about. You can see the volunteers that are in Grace Central. It's a room on the other side of the lobby. They would love to meet you and answer any questions that you have. And one thing I just want to call out is that we won't have church on Thanksgiving next week. So if you're used to coming on Thursday night like tonight, come join us next Sunday for regular service. God bless. Hope you guys have a great holiday next weekend.